A man was chatting away with his co-worker while driving, completely distracted. The next thing Ethan knew, he was waking up from unconsciousness in the middle of a forest. His wallet and phone were gone, and his co-worker who'd been driving was nowhere to be found. The throbbing pain in his head forced him to put these questions aside for now. He stumbled out of the woods and found himself in a strange little town. Passers-by shot him odd looks as he appeared on the street. Barely holding himself together, Ethan dragged his weakened body into a restaurant and asked the person at the front desk where he was. "You're in Blairwood Pines, Idaho. I don't know how I got here." At that moment, Ethan's body finally gave out, and he collapsed to the floor unconscious. When he came to again, he was in a hospital. A nurse told him he had multiple fractures and a concussion, clearly the result of a serious car accident. Fortunately, he just needed a few days of rest to recover. Gradually, the agent's memories started coming back. He remembered why he and his co-worker had come here in the first place, to find two agents who had gone missing not long ago. But before they could even start the investigation, the accident happened. When Ethan asked the nurse if she'd seen his co-worker, she regretfully informed him that his colleague didn't make it. The news hit him hard. He wanted to call his wife to let her know what had happened, but the nurse said there were no communication devices in the hospital. Apparently the constant ringing would disturb the patients. She told him to focus on resting and then left the room. But Ethan, with his agent training, wasn't about to buy that excuse. He got dressed and prepared to leave, especially after noticing that in this entire hospital, he was the only patient. Just as he pressed the elevator button, the nurse suddenly appeared behind him, blocking his way. Ethan ignored her and stepped into the elevator. She warned him it would be best if he stayed, but seeing his determination, she eventually backed off. He then walked into a bar and asked the bartender, Amy, if he could use the phone. He tried calling his wife, but the call went straight to voicemail. He left her a message explaining his situation and hung up. Then he asked Amy about the two missing agents, but she said she had no memory of them. However, just as Ethan was about to leave, Amy handed him a note, saying it was his address. Since Ethan had no phone and no money, he could come find him there if he needed any help. But when Ethan went to pocket the note, he noticed something strange written on the back. He didn't think much of it at the time and left the bar. He hadn't walked far when he heard crickets chirping in some nearby bushes. Curious, he reached in and pulled out a small speaker playing recorded cricket sounds. This bizarre discovery left Ethan completely confused. He figured it was just some quirky local thing and didn't give it much more thought. He found a motel and crashed for the night. The next morning, he was jolted awake by loud knocking on the door. It was the motel owner demanding payment. With no money to his name, Ethan was promptly kicked out. Left with no choice, he pulled out the address Amy had given him. But when he arrived at the location, he found an abandoned, rundown house that clearly hadn't been lived in for ages. He called out for Amy but got no response. It seemed like he'd been played. But when he pushed open the bedroom door, his jaw dropped. There on the bed lay a rotting corpse covered in flies and insects. When he made out the face, Ethan could hardly believe his eyes. It was one of the missing agents he'd been sent to find.